Okay, this is my final video reflection. I'm just going to start by talking a little bit about what we did today and then reflect on the overall kind of experience of the course, as well as I'll sneak my object for the course in here too. First thing we did today was we talked about functions with a get it together activity that I thought was pretty tough, but we started getting better at it as time goes on, just like I think kids will get better at it as you practice more of these types of things in their learning. Next we did our article discussions, and we talked about the articles we read. It was funny because we only read two different types of articles amongst the six of us. And it was good to hear the other one, and actually one of the other people from another group told me about a cool graph theory game that I might try with my finite kids next year, called Sprout, I guess. I've never heard of it before, but it sounded interesting. And then we kind of had to, again, we're in a group with all secondary and middle school people, and we had to solve systems of equations using that kind of elementary school mindset. So that was kind of, I think, tricky for some of us, since we were not in that mindset or way of thinking. So once we got the hang of it, we figured it out. But again, just not being able to write X and not being able to solve the system the way we're used to really made us kind of think outside the box a little bit. Another thing that kind of brought that to light was solving the equations with the spades. I realized the first thing I did was I rewrote the exact same thing they had with X's instead of spades. And then I tried to stop myself and see if I could do it with just the spade. And I could, but I had to think a little bit, because again, it took me outside that pattern of what I was used to, always seeing a letter in for the variable. Let's see. Oh, and then I guess I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the keystone problem on the board. I just think that it's kind of ridiculous, some of the things that they're asking us to do for the keystone. I mean, I understand that they want to keep things responsible and make sure the teachers are doing what they're supposed to. But if they want us to teach more depth, but they're keeping the same amount of material, how can we get depth if they don't cut anything out of the curriculum? And again, when I have finite, I don't have a test, I can really get into depth with some really cool projects and some really cool things that we were kind of talking about today. But you just don't get that opportunity in the Algebra 1s, because there's so much in the curriculum to cover, and you got kids struggling with just the basic concepts. So anyway, and again, another thing that got me into that elementary school mindset or viewpoint today was definitely the pencils and the eraser problems. And I like the mirror activity actually a lot better than the cube activity, just because I think that's something that I could do in my algebra classes, and it kind of ties directly to factoring, and it does a little bit of proving, which I said, I think, earlier in a reflection that I just don't do enough of. I'd like to sneak in a little more proving or verifying to get the kids kind of thinking about why something works. So I think that would be a cool activity, and that's definitely something they could do. Especially, I don't even know if I'd need to give them the visual aid. They might be able to do that on their own, but it would definitely help for them to have the visual aid. We kind of ended the day with some pretty cool activities, which I definitely liked. Like I said, some of them I had done before, and I thought those were kind of a good way to wrap up the day. And I got to use a little bit of Excel to refresh my brain on how to graph with that sort of thing, and I showed a couple other people how to do it. And I think Excel's a really great tool to graph with, because you can make graphs really quick, and the charts are real nice, and it's just a very intuitive way to punch things in. There's not a whole lot of steps like on a graphing calculator sometimes with weird notation. So overall through the course, really this kind of opened my eyes a little bit about what's taught at each level. I really don't think I had a great understanding before of what was being taught at each different level. I didn't know they had already started equation sort of things in the elementary school level. So that was probably the big overarching theme for me, or thing that kind of opened up my ideas. Just to kind of see the algebra from everybody's perspective throughout all the different grade groups. The most meaningful, I think, was for me to try and get out of my typical pattern of solving a problem and trying to think about it how a student that I wouldn't be teaching would learn it, so I could kind of see how they may have learned it in the past, and maybe I can find a way to better teach them, to tie them together. And again, that's something that I think I would take away from this course too, is just to kind of maybe change up my teaching a little bit to tie it in to tie it into my teaching to see how they learned it before. And also I think just teaching more pattern sort of things with, especially with slope and all the different things we talked about. I think sometimes I just give them, you know, two ordered pairs and find the equation of a line. Maybe if I give them a chart or just say, hey, let's try and find the pattern, that would be a good way to improve my algebra course. So how am I different from when I first walked into the course Monday a.m.? I guess I'm a little more tired right now. Now, like I said, I guess just a better understanding of what's taught at each different grade level, so that I know kind of how things are connected and that they are being taught these things, and somewhere we're losing them along the way. And I have my object here. I'm just going to do this real quick. I know I'm running over time, but my visual is my camera. And the reason I chose my camera is because it has a lot of different settings, which is sort of like all the different ways that we can teach or the different levels that we have to look at. And it can give us all different snapshots of how different students can learn. So I got a better snapshot here of how elementary students learn versus middle school students versus the high school students, which I'm used to. So just seeing all those different things kind of gave me different viewpoints of the world like my camera could do. And that is all. Thanks.